Hey guys, welcome back, and thank you so much to the people who stayed and listened last week. I hope and pray that you got something out of it and you grew in your relationship with God, and that you are just ready to continue your walk with Him and just meet Him in new ways. So, I'm kind of just going to piggyback off of what I talked about a little bit last week, which is just comparing and the Rachel and Leah story. Because I think we all do it, and I mean, like I said, we've been doing it since Genesis, since the beginning of time. And it just puts resentment and not good feelings in our hearts and our minds. So this took me 3 days to make because my phone kept messing up, and my husband told me, hey, record in 4K and 60 whatever, and I did that, and it turns out that it takes up way more space than what I had. So we had to try to figure out how to put all of this together and still make space to be able to make the full video and to post it. So it took me 3 days, but also it was just a busy week last week. And then of course Thursday, my youngest ended up getting sick, and if you can't tell, I'm a little stuffy sounding. My husband's stuffy, and we're just not doing very good in this house, which kind of sucks. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with what we're gonna talk about. So if you hear pages turning, it's because, once again, I wrote my thoughts down and I tried to put them in order the best that I could, so bear with me. In Genesis chapter 29, we have Jacob, who went to Padan Aram to find his uncle Laban, or is it Laban? I think it's Laban, to marry one of his daughters, which would make them cousins. To sum up the story, we have Jacob at the well, who sees the sheep and goats waiting to be watered. He talks to the other shepherds and asks about his uncle, and they say, look, here comes his daughter Rachel with the flock now. Turns out that she's a shepherd, and I think God's funny like that, and his plans always work out. So to move on with the story, they meet, and Rachel runs back and tells Laban that Jacob had come. Jacob stays with them for a while until his uncle says he shouldn't work for free. How much should your wages be? Now Jacob was in love with Rachel, so he told Laban, I'll work for you for 7 years if you'll give me Rachel, your younger daughter, as my wife. So they make this deal. This deal is soon to be broken. So let's get back to that deal being broken. So he was supposed to work 7 years to then marry Rachel. Well, it turns out that it wasn't in their custom for the younger daughter to be married before the oldest. So Laban tricked Jacob, and he married Leah instead of Rachel. And Jacob wasn't very happy like this. He wasn't happy about that. So, he was saying, I worked 7 years. Why'd you do this to me? So then Laban tells him, wait until the bridal week is over, then we'll give you Rachel provided you promise to work another 7 years for me. So of course we have Jacob, who agrees, and a week later he and Rachel were married. And in Genesis it tells us that Jacob loved Rachel much more. But God doesn't forget about Leah. In verse 31, it says, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he enabled her to have children, but Rachel could not conceive. So see, God shows up in ways that we never expect him to. So we're going to jump back to the comparing part, where in Genesis chapter 29, verse 17, it says, Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. First, let me say, ouch. That hurts, because my eyes are weak too. Second, there it is. We're comparing the two sisters who are uniquely different and beautiful in their own ways. But isn't that what we all do? What if I just dyed my hair? What if I wore colored contacts or lost a few pounds? If only I were more patient. If only I looked or acted like her. I wish my house looked like theirs. And We didn't all live the same lives. We're not all the same, and that's how it's supposed to be. Comparing ourselves to each other lets sin creep in. We feel doubt in His goodness, abandonment like God isn't working and omnipresent, unheard like He isn't listening, sad as if He hasn't done miracles for you. Then resentment kicks in, and you get mad and say, well, if you're not going to help me, then I'll do it myself, and then boom. See what comparing has let in and done? It let that sin creep back in. Question God, and then take your eyes off of Him and who He says you are in Him. Have you ever heard the analogy of the artist and the critics? It's been a few years since I've heard or told it, but you have this artist who has worked really hard on this painting, paying attention to everything, even the number of the hairs that he has painted, and he steps back and says, it's finished, it's perfect. But then you have the critics who are like, well, what's wrong with this? Why did you make it like this? Why that eye color? Etc., etc. But the artist doesn't listen to any of them because to him it is a masterpiece. Much like Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. For we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Or the famous Psalm chapter 139, verses 13 and 14. For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well. That's just to name a couple verses. If you want to know just how deep his love truly goes, read the book or focus on Jesus and who He is. Would you give your only Son to save the rest of the world so that they could spend the rest of eternity in heaven with you? I'd say that is an unfathomable kind of love. If we could stop comparing ourselves in our lives, we could focus more on God and who He says we are in Him and the plan that He has for us. All right, and that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for staying and watching and listening. I pray God blesses you in many, many new ways this week, and come back next week to see what we talk about. Bye.